Today's episode of the Bill Simmons Podcast is brought to you by FrameBridge. FrameBridge makes it ridiculously easy to custom frame your favorite items, mail them anything. Art, posters, memorabilia, even uploaded photos from your phone or laptop. And their experts will frame it and send it back in days. Pricing starts at $39, a fraction of those expensive frame stores. All shipping is free. Enter offer code BS at checkout for 15% off your first FrameBridge.com order. Today's podcast is also brought to you by ZipRecruiter.com. Your company is only as good as the people you hire. When you're short-staffed, there's no time to deal with all the different job sites until now. Thanks to ZipRecruiter.com, you can post to 100-plus job sites with one click and have the best chance of finding that perfect candidate. You can instantly be matched to candidates from over 6 million resumes. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/BS. Welcome to the Bill Simmons Podcast, taping this on a Friday. It's running this week when you're listening to it. Judd Apatow, we're finally doing this.
We've talked about it for a long time.
And I like getting you right now because you just did a whole media surge for Trainwreck like 3 months ago.
That's right.
How many in-depth interviews can one man give over the course of a month?
That is a very good question, because I made a choice for Trainwreck to do a lot of press. I felt like, when you're breaking somebody who people love but isn't a movie star yet, you just have to do everything, because you have to assume there's so much noise out there that if I do 40 interviews, that most people will hear half of one.
Yep.
And so even though you're sick to your stomach at babbling so much, there's only about 300 comedy nerds in America who will listen to my WTF and my Bill Simmons and my, you had
a big weird Rolling Stone one. You had a whole bunch of them.
Yeah. And it's always precarious because you feel like, wow, in any of these, I could end my career.
Right. Or or you have one sentence in a 5,500 word interview, and that's what everybody grasps onto.
No, it is an art to not end your career.
Yeah.
It really is. Like, you have to, because when I work with, people who are just beginning to do a lot of press, there's always that moment where you have to explain to them, here's the ways you can end your career. Try not to do that. One thing I always tell people is, don't trash other people.
Yeah.
A lot of young people, they'll like do their first interviews and suddenly, they're either talking 9/11 conspiracies or they're just trashing a comedian they don't like or a movie or a TV show.
Right.
And I always say, there's nothing that makes you look like a bigger jackass than attacking your, your fellow writers and directors and comedians.
Yeah, it's not hip hop.
It's not hip hop.
Scale it back.
And it is a drag that you can't be honest about all of your opinions about things. But also, we all know the work is so hard that to go like, that movie wasn't funny.
Right.
You look like such an asshole because they tried to make it funny. We're all trying.
Well, I really liked your interview book. I emailed you after I read it because there were so many different nuggets in there.
Oh, thank you.
Listening to Chris Rock, first of all, he was a really good interviewer. I liked his HBO show. I thought he did a good job of getting stuff out of people. But then the interview you had with him, I think he talks as well about the effects of fame on people and what it's like to go through that process. That's like one of my little pet weird things that I love. I love when people are famous and then talk about actually some of the difficulties of being famous. Because I think when you're, normal people are like, well, obviously it'd be awesome to be famous. You're rich.
Yeah.
You get to do what you love to do. That sounds great.
Sure.
And meanwhile, the more people you hear who talk about it candidly, they're like, yeah, it feels kind of empty, or you feel this weird pressure and all that stuff. But he was great at talking about that.
You're usually not allowed to talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we definitely live in a culture that if you say anything, if you complain about, people bugging you while you're eating, most people are like, well, fuck you. I hate my job. I'll take your job and have people bug me while I eat. So it's hard for most people to understand what it's like to give up all anonymity. Yeah. And, for me, I always feel like I'm in the perfect space of almost nobody caring at all. And the few people that care when they bump into me are pleasantly amused, but really don't want to talk to me for more than 30 seconds.
Right.
And I remember going to see a Clippers game with Shandling years ago. And, you know, most people don't recognize him, but the people who do are thrilled to see him. And Gary said, I'm at the perfect level. But then other people, you know, if you walk down the street with Adam Sandler, literally every single person will stop and try to talk to him.
Yeah.
In the friendliest way. They love him. They feel like he's a part of their family. He feels accessible to them. I remember I was with him and there were so many people in San Francisco trying to talk to him that we just took a left and went into a Korean deli to buy a stick of gum or something to just
to get a breath. Yeah.
And then they were so excited, the employees at the Korean deli. And some people really enjoy talking to people. Adam really likes talking to people and is from the school of, I have everything because of you. Yeah. And I like to meet everybody. But other people hate it.
Yeah.
They just feel intruded upon. I had a meeting once with John Malkovich, and I'm sure he likes talking to people. But he did say, you know, it's very weird to be in a restaurant and know that a fair amount of people are photographing you while you're eating without asking your permission.
Like you're a zoo animal.
Yeah. That it's just a weird reality. And now you don't know if people are videotaping you. Sometimes people pretend to take a picture of you, but they're videotaping you because they can grab the picture later.
Yep.
And that's kind of messed up because what if you're like in a bad mood right before you give them the fake smile? Like I took a picture with the Rolling Stones once. A friend of mine was like, hey, they're doing some meet and greets before this show in London. They bring me and my wife in. And the Rolling Stones suddenly just like walk in. They're like, okay, stand there. And they're just, you know, grumpy and whatever. They don't give a crap. They're just taking pictures with beer distributors and whatnot. When we got the photo back, it looks like we have been friends for 30 years. They turn it on for the one snap. But we literally did not even speak.
Yeah.
But what if I had video of the 20 seconds before and after,
like, and then hey,
the annoyed, well, I was going to say Bill Wyman, but he's not there anymore.
So it seems like with fame, with athletes, doesn't matter. They're playing a game. They become more and more famous. People know, and they sign autographs, but they're playing sports. Actors, maybe they get a little more reclusive. I don't know. Music tends to seep into the lyrics. They're trapped on the road. They're in the hotel. Yeah. But for comedians, it's the most interesting because Eddie Murphy was my guy. That was my favorite guy ever. And he became too famous. And part of his comedy was he noticed everything and he tweaked people and he made fun of people. But now he's trapped in his little mansion in Bubble Hill. But this is a little like George Simmons and Funny People where it's like you're this famous comedian, you made it, but now you're kind of trapped with yourself. How are you going to be funny anymore when that happens?
Yeah, and I'm always fascinated by that. I'm fascinated by people who can keep it up, who can stay funny, who can stay engaged and have new ideas, like Larry Gelbart, till the day he died, was writing amazing movies and was so funny to talk to. And those are my heroes, people who can keep it going. I had me and Bill Hader just went to go hang out with Mel Brooks the other day. We just went to his office to just chat with him for fun because he's the greatest of all time. Yeah, and he's so freaking funny. Yeah. He's 89 years old. He's about to go do another production of one of his musicals. He's riotous, and it's fun because he has stories, but you always try to think of a question that will elicit an answer that he hasn't given before.
It's probably impossible. What is he, 90? 89, 90?
Yeah. So you're like, who can I ask? What question about Howard Morris can I ask? Or just some obscure Carl Reiner question where it's not one of his regular stories that he's going to remember something that he hasn't thought about in 40 or 50 years. But those guys are very, they're still fully engaged and sharp. So in the last year and a half, I started doing stand-up comedy
I know,
again.
I've been fascinated by this. Were you 22 years or something?
Yeah, I stopped in 92.
Yeah.
And I had done it a couple of times when I was writing jokes for Funny People. And every once in a while, I'd get up at like an alternative club and tell a story, but really hadn't done it for real. And now I'm going to play Carnegie Hall November 14th.
Isn't that, how many people is that?
That's about 2,400.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's a lot.
And Mike Birbiglia is going to be there and some special guests. And so please go. The tickets are almost sold out. But it's been really good for me because it is the moment when you would never do that again. I'm 47 years old. I'm about to turn 48. And I thought, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it again. And I was watching Amy do stand up and have a fun time and play these huge crowds. And I got just jealous. And I felt like it was unfinished business, that I stopped it before I had really figured out how to do it the way I wanted to do it.
I remember seeing a Young Comedians with you.
92.
Which one, somebody famous was on it.
Well, it's actually a pretty interesting one. Hosted by Dana Carvey.
Yeah.
Andy Kindler, Janine Garofalo, Bill Bellamy, Nick DiPaolo, and just an explodingly hilarious Ray Romano. Where all of us at the taping, we were shooting some interviews before the show, and Ray, years before the TV show.
Yeah, how would you know?
Ray's so funny that we were all looking at each other like, when did Ray become a superstar? And you could see, this is going to happen. He's hit another level. And Adam Sandler has gotten up a bunch at some shows I've done recently, and he hadn't been doing stand-up in, I don't know, at least 10 years. And I think it's just something that people, if they have the energy for it, should do, because it's great to talk to the audience directly.
Yeah.
It affects you when you're writing a screenplay at home. I think it wakes up some neurons in your head, or just some conversation with the audience. So it is sad that Eddie Murphy doesn't do it, because I guess he's having more fun recording music in his house or whatever his lifestyle is. I never think
spending money.
Yeah, and he's still got the money.
Well, you said, one of the interviews I read about you, you said one of the reasons you came back was because you felt like your self-esteem was slipping, and you wanted to get, regain some of it by conquering a fear, just going on stage and delivering jokes.
Yeah, on one level I thought, why am I not doing it? And when I stopped back in the day, one of the reasons why I stopped is I just kept getting offered writing jobs, and I didn't have time to get up every night. And I was getting paid real money to, create the Ben Stiller show with Ben, and it was a lot better than getting paid $400 to fly to Texas for a week.
Yeah.
But also, I always used to think, who cares what I have to say? Just shut up, Judd. Who cares? No one cares. You have nothing to say. And it took me decades. It really took me till I did Freaks and Geeks and the 40-Year-Old Virgin to realize that my stories would connect with people, and that they are interesting, and that everyone's story is interesting. I mean, I've always believed that almost any person I've ever met would be an amazing actor, or it would be a fascinating character in the right story.
Yeah. And
that all of our stories are great. So I started doing it again as a way to say, like, you're not a fucking asshole. Like, you're valid to speak just like anybody else is. And it's fun, and you're allowed to have fun, because I think that's another thing. Sometimes I think,
well, you also have material that resonates with me, just because, some of the stuff you've done, at least the stuff I've seen, has been about like just your daughters making fun of you and just trying to fit in this house with 3 females, and
and that's kind of enough.
Yeah,
because
you get 35 minutes out of that.
Oh, I could talk about it for hours.
Yeah.
I went to see Taylor Swift with my daughters, and I could talk about it for so long, about how uncomfortable it is to be 47 years old at a Taylor Swift concert, because you're not allowed to not enjoy it, because then you look like a jerk, but you're not allowed to enjoy it too much, because if I'm dancing around, it's really creepy.
Well, especially you, like somebody gets their cell phone out.
Exactly. I can really
rocking it.
Yeah, I can't rock to shake it up. And then the only way that you can really watch the show appropriately is with respect. So you could watch Taylor Swift and go, I got to admit, she's good. She's really good. And
she's
that's
really
your
good.
stance.
Yeah.
That's your sense. Like, you know what? She is a legend. I get it. I get it. And every day with my kids, there's something like that. Like I was telling somebody, I feel like I'm living vicariously through my kids. So they're 13 and 17.
Yep.
And my wife.
Same age as Obama's daughters, by the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And don't think my kids don't know that. And I think I'm kind of living their life with them. Like when I was a kid, my parents didn't know what I was thinking or doing or feeling.
Yeah, you're trapped in your room.
I don't tell them like who I had a crush on and who I was brokenhearted from. I mean, very little communication. My kids tell me every single thing that happens every second of the day. They'll text me during school. So in a way, it's like I'm living their lives with them. So I'm living the life of a 47-year-old man.
But you're a 16-year-old girl.
And I'm a 17-year-old girl trying to get into college, and I'm a 13-year-old girl waiting to get her period. Right. I'm living it all simultaneously, and it's a lot.
So your daughter Maud is the older one, right?
Yes, she's 17.
And she's been on Twitter for a while.
Yes.
So do you read her Twitter and you're trying to decode different moods and
I don't have to decode it because
you know it already?
She's telling me everything that's happening every second of the day. I mean, she's doing college applications now, so I'm getting a full play-by-play. And girls are very dramatic. It is a funny thing because boys don't really communicate. And so they'll be enraged about something, and then I'm all worked up about it.
Yeah.
Some girl they're in a fight with, and I'm like, well, what are we going to do about that girl? And then they'll just drop it on a dime. Yeah. And it's like it never happened. And then I'm like, but aren't we still mad at her? And
right.
Like, no, they don't care. So I have to find a way to have some distance from them because their emotions change.
It is amazing. It's like you spend a lot of time. My daughter's only 10 and a half, but you spend a lot of time going, wait a second, I thought you hated her. Oh, no, we're fine. Yeah.
We worked it out.
Yesterday you said you wanted to run her over in a car. No, it's good now.
No, it's fine. We talked.
Yeah, it is the swoons. See, you didn't have a boy. The boys, they're just dumb for 8 years. They're just like dumb little lumps of potatoes.
Exactly.
And they just kind of bump into stuff and fall down and they fart and they're happy and they take dumps.
There are moments when I think it would be nice to have a dumb boy around instead of hilarious, brilliant, maniacal little girls
who are reading into every single interaction and comment, take everything personally.
But they're so funny, and it does make you believe in the karma of the world that a ridiculously goofy man who doesn't understand women is thrown into a world with three women. I often say 3 ages of the same woman. And
true, because they are closer to your wife or my wife or anyone's wife. There's so much of your wife and the daughters.
Yes.
It's almost hard to separate it after a while.
Well, there's no pride in a girl being like her dad.
Yeah.
No one's like, I'm just like dad.
Yeah.
Not at all. So that's been great. And then, it extends to working with Amy Schumer and Lena Dunham and Jenny Connor and all the women that I've gotten to work with.
You figured out women.
Well,
you're the first person who's ever figured them out.
I figured nothing out. I've just karmically accepted the universe wants me to try to figure it out.
Was it, your daughter was on Twitter pretty early.
Yeah.
And she was in a bunch of your movies. It seemed like you were okay with just, here are my kids. You can recognize them. You can tweet at them.
Yeah,
I'm the opposite. I'm terrified of anyone knowing who my kids are.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, and we've debated it. A lot. On one level, I like that Maud can express herself. She's really insightful and hilarious, and she gets a big reaction on Twitter. I think she has, 150,000 people follow her, and we bump into people and she'll, they'll know her a little bit just from her opinions about things. But there's definitely creeps out there.
Yes.
And
lots of them.
We certainly keep our eye on it. And I don't know, I really don't know if I'm correct on anything to do with the internet. I talk a lot about it in my stand-up because on one level, I think all the social media and addiction to phones and computers are going to make them disabled. They're just going to be idiots.
To be socially,
But I also sometimes think, or am I like the old guy who doesn't like when Elvis shakes his hips? And I just don't get how the world is morphing. So in a way, I'm hedging my bets because there's a part of me that thinks they completely have no attention span. I mean, the amount of selfies being taken in my home, you would think that all these girls think that they're going to become famous photographers because they literally take hundreds of photos all day long. And you do think, what was I doing at that age? Was I being productive?
Yeah, with us, there's like probably 7 photos of when we were 8 years old.
Oh, there's whole eras of me that don't exist.
Hey, there's me.
Try to find a picture of me in college. There's 2 photographs that prove that I went to college. Everything is covered now. But when I was a kid, what did I do with my time? I was just in my house watching Love Connection.
Yeah, we had like 11 channels.
Exactly. I mean, I literally would go
sports
home.
And movies.
I'd watch Love Connection. I would watch Live at 5 with Stu Simmons and Jack Cafferty. I'd watch Merv Griffin, The Tonight Show, Letterman. So is it worse what they're doing because they'll just sit and they'll download the Hamilton soundtrack and then learn everything about, everyone in that show. Like they're processing so much information. I bought maybe 35 albums when I was a kid. Yeah. I had my Linda Ronstadt's Greatest Hits. I had my Chicago album.
Hall & Oates.
They're going through the whole history of music every week.
I am jealous of that because we're within a year of each other. But I remember like in 1986 when you could start really buying CDs when they were all out there. It wasn't a giant catalog.
No.
But now if you're 15, you have 50 years of CDs and songs and all kinds of stuff to sample.
And when they discover something, they eat it all. Like if you say, hey, you should check out Pink Floyd, like 2 days later they'll come back, I listened to every Pink Floyd record. But then they'll never listen to it again. It's like they'll decide what they think of it and just move on to something else.
The thing I don't like about social media and the internet in general, this has turned into 2 old guys on the couch complaining about the new people. But when we were kids and when we were in high school, like people hit us, but we didn't really know what other people thought.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like I love Letterman. I started taping it on the VHS. We had a VHS in 1982 and I would tape it and watch it in the mornings. I loved it. And I knew one other kid in my class who liked him. And that was it. And we would say, hey, did you see the viewer mail? Yeah. But now I would have all these people to experience Letterman with, and I would feel like I was part of a community. Back then, it was just you.
Yeah, I feel that there's something troubling about it all because there is a digital black hole that like there's so much material, so many people looking at so many things.
And also swaying people certain directions, right?
Yeah.
Where it's almost like you feel like you have to follow the crowd. I worry about individual thought.
Yeah, because when I was a kid, I did the same thing. And I think it was both lonely, but it made me feel special.
Yeah.
Like I felt special that I liked Monty Python and no one in my entire school could give a fuck.
Right.
That was a big thing for Paul Feig on Freaks and Geeks. He felt it was important to identify those nerds as loving great comedy like Steve Martin and Monty Python, and that they were outcasts because of it. But now maybe the entire school is talking about James Corden doing, car karaoke with Stevie Wonder.
I feel like you were involved directly with 2 of the last things that were like that. Larry Sanders.
Oh, yeah.
Which was, the internet was just starting, but it wasn't, people had email, happening. People barely knew how to put a URL in, but like, that was my show. I mean, that's, and I was living in Boston. A couple people I worked in a bar restaurant with, and Sunday nights we watched it, and it was like the season finale or the series finale of it. Had like 20 people over.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And it was like a real thing, but we had no idea there were other parts of the country that cared about the show like this. I mean, it got nominated for Emmys and stuff, so we knew it was respected.
It lost a lot of Emmys.
People wrote about it, but we didn't know like it resonated like it did. Yeah. But now it feels like a whole other thing. And then I think Freaks and Geeks is like that too. If Freaks and Geeks comes now, in 2015, it's a completely different experience. Sure. You have people trying to save the show after 2 episodes, I would guess, right? And Netflix, they're binging it.
Well, yeah, it would have just been on HBO or Netflix and lasted forever.
Netflix would have been the best move, I feel like. Just dump them all out at the same time. No.
I'm of 2 schools with the binge watching.
Okay.
Like I watched Narcos recently.
Yeah.
Phenomenal, just phenomenal. And Leslie and I couldn't have enjoyed our 3 days with Narcos. You watch.
That's the thing. You go on vacation with a TV show now.
But I really like with Girls, which is on HBO, that people talk about it and argue about it for a week before you get another one. the show we're doing for Netflix now, which comes out in the spring, is called Love, and it's about a relationship between Paul Rust and Gillian Jacobs from Community.
Yep.
And it's just a relationship in slow motion. So you're seeing them meet. You know, it takes a lot of episodes before they even go out on a date. But we are making it with the assumption that people will watch it in 2 sittings. So it's 10 episodes.
Oh, that's interesting.
In our head, it's all about flow into the next episode, because there's no chance you're not going to watch 3 to 5 when you sit down.
Bloodline was like that. I feel like with Bloodline, they had 3 episodes of shows, but they're like, people are going to binge watch these and they'll be half asleep. So just make sure there's a lot of scenes of people outside in the Florida Keys. Make sure Kyle Chandler has sweat patches every 20 minutes, and people are just going to keep watching. I agree with you, though. I personally, and I'm probably old school or an old fart on this, but I like the every week thing. I like the ability. You know, I was at dinner the other night, a double date with my wife, and we all started talking about The Affair.
Yes.
Which was 2 episodes in, and it was like, all right, if that's on Netflix, one couple's ahead of the other couple. We've watched 8 episodes. Don't tell me. And then you have that whole thing. It's nice to be on the same track. Yeah,
it's just a very weird time. I have to say, as a creative person,
I was going to ask you. It's got to be bizarre.
I'm torn about it. I'm torn because I'm doing the HBO thing. I'm doing the Netflix thing. You know, we're doing movies. You know, I work with Funny or Die, so I have my hand in all of it. But there is a part of me that feels freed by the fact that there's a lot of content.
Well, and also a lot of different ways to do it.
Yeah, there's a lot of freedom to do things, to be left alone. I mean, you know, we weren't left alone in our early days working on TV, and we were canceled, or people gave us crazy notes that we were always at war over. So now with HBO and Netflix, they let you do your thing. There's thoughtful people giving notes, but they will basically let you have your vision in a very positive way. But you also know there's 8 billion shows, and you don't feel like you're making impact. Where in the old day, maybe 110 million people would watch the final MASH. You don't get that sense of the world, you know, all having seen last night's All in the Family. And even if they did, there's so many shows coming on next week that the discussion of that ends immediately. And I think this extends also to the news. 24-hour news cycle, so much content. People can't hold on to anything to even solve problems like the climate, you know, wars, because we're so distracted because there's so much coming at us that we'll forget about the refugees because Hillary Clinton did a good job last night in the debate. And that makes my head spin. I don't even know what I make of it. I feel like we know too much. I don't want to know about every crime committed on Earth every day, every war, every tragedy, every good thing, every nice bra a pop star wore and took a picture of herself in. Yeah. It does make me want to hide under the covers and just do nothing and maybe get old tapes of Love Connection and watch them by myself. I do feel like everyone's head is spinning, and it is also why people are amused by Donald Trump. You know, it's just someone grabbing the fucking attention. Yeah, there's so much shit, so I'm going to be so horrid that you have to listen to me because I'm so fucking amusing, even though I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm a casino owner. I know nothing about how to negotiate with the Chinese. And a former reality host. Exactly. And so that's what's scary about the world. You know, how people grab attention, you know, how quickly we absorb things and forget about things. I won't talk about Narcos in 3 weeks. Right. But I'll still talk about Lou Grant. You know, like I'll remember that show. I'll remember the White Shadow. You hit it. I think you hit it, though. I think there was less stuff that captured our attention back then. Yeah. So the stuff that did capture it was you know, like you noticed the White Shadow poster I had here when I came in. Now it would be like, you know, it could be one of 200 posters 30 years from now. Exactly. You know. Well, Netflix is going to put 26 series on a year. And so we're all going like, oh, they're all so good. How many can we watch? You can't. It also seems like the quality is, there's a lot of good to pretty good to good to very good. Yeah. And it becomes a case of, I know I'd like that. Do I want to spend 8 hours? Yeah. I don't have to watch it,
but I know I'd like it if I watched it.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll save it for later, and then you never watch it. Yeah. I have like 20 shows like that. I know I'd like it.
I'll get to it one day.
I'll get to it. Hey, we should do an ad.
What are we promoting right now?
I keep telling you about SeatGeek. It's my favorite app for sporting tickets or really any event tickets. When you shop at SeatGeek.com, you can check out virtually every ticket option available for games and events. Find a ticket you want to buy, make 2 taps, and you're done. Show your phone at the venue and you're in. My listeners can save $20 right now. Download the free SeatGeek app. Enter promo code BS. SeatGeek will send you $20 after your first purchase. Every ticket purchased on SeatGeek is backed by a 100% guarantee. So download the free SeatGeek app. Enter promo code BS. Just do it. You've worked with a lot of famous, successful people over the years, and what's really interesting about you, one of the things that's interesting, you've caught people at different points of their careers, right? So like Shandling, who I'm all-time most fascinated by, you caught him at the tail end of the best show he was ever going to make, and he knew it was the best show he was ever going to make. And in your book, you dropped a bunch of hints about, it was a little dysfunctional there the last year and a half. Like,
well, I was there from not the beginning, second season,
right.
But I was really close friends with Gary when he was casting the show, and when he first thought of it and was writing it. So I did get to see the whole thing.
He's a lovable guy.
Yeah.
But it seemed like, so what was going on that show? Because you said you basically learned from that show a bunch of things not to do.
Well,
from a leadership standpoint,
there's a lot of
collaborative standpoint, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about auteur television.
Yeah.
Which is, the best of television.
Singular voice.
Yeah, Matt Weiner, doing Mad Men, or Larry David doing Curb Your Enthusiasm, or David Chase doing The Sopranos. That's as good as creativity gets, when people really can do what they want to do and they're in their groove and they're brilliant. But when you add that guy is the star of the show,
that's when it gets kind of. So it's almost like a player coach in basketball or something.
Yeah, it makes it 1,000 times more difficult, because it's a full-time job starring on a television show.
Yeah.
And so the second that's what's happening, you need your writing staff and your directors to work at a very high level. And if you're going for greatness, and I've worked in every scenario, but with somebody like Gary, he's going for
right.
He's
he
going
wanted
for the
greatest comedy ever.
Every episode, his standards could not be higher. Now, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got when I was out to do Freaks and Geeks, Jay Kazan and I went and had lunch with Stephen Bochco. And Stephen Bochco said, making television is basically impossible. There's not enough time. There's not enough money. There's not enough brain power.
Yeah.
So you always have to remember that you're basically trying to put 10 pounds of shit in an 8-pound bag. And that's what happens every day. It's not exactly functioning right.
Yeah.
But you just do what you have to do. You do the best you can. You have to just do the best you can. And so those situations where Roseanne is running her show, and Gary, running his shows.
Brett Butler maybe being the worst example.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard, especially when the person at the center is a genius, and he is always going to be more talented than every single person working at the show.
Yeah.
So if Gary hires a writing staff, and I'm not like exaggerating,
you had a murderer's row as a writing staff.
You need the greatest writing staff ever, because Gary is the best comedy writer that you can be.
Yeah.
There's maybe 5 or 6 where we go, there's the Larry David and Seinfeld, or, Phil Rosenthal, So inherently the staff is not as good as Gary, right? That's the issue. And so then scripts come in, and sometimes they're great. There's certain people like Peter Tolan who would just write the greatest scripts of all time. But a lot of times scripts aren't as good. And now Gary doesn't have that much time to fix everything because he's acting for 14 hours a day, but he has to go home and fix it, or fix it at lunch, or fix it on the weekend. So there's an inherent stress to making a show like that.
That's not sustainable for more than 5-6 years, right?
Well, yes, but that's about the life of a show.
Yeah.
And Gary completely pulled it off.
Yeah.
I mean, the show, when I go back and watch it, it's stunning.
I like that the last 2 years were my favorite 2 years. I mean, I actually thought the show got better pretty much every year, although the second to last year was probably the best start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, it's remarkable. And so, that's what the stress of a show is like. And I know that as a showrunner on shows, that, when I assign a script, if it comes in and it's bad, you just think, oh God,
yeah,
I got to fix this, or I got to find somebody to fix this.
Yeah.
There's an inherent stress in that. But I always loved it. We used to debate it a lot at Sanders. We would say, would you want to work for a genius in a difficult situation, or would you rather work for someone who's really easygoing and do mediocre work?
Yeah, who's a B-. And
I always thought, I want to be with the genius. And so I had a tons of fun and always got along great with Gary, and Gary, to sit next to Gary while he's writing, So I'd go to his house on the weekend, there'd be a script, and Gary would be, I'm mainly there to make it fun and to kick it around with Gary, but really it's the moment where Gary's going to focus and rewrite this script.
Yeah.
To watch it happen, it was, the best moments of my comedy career, to just see Gary suddenly, it's on. He's hitting his groove. He's in the zone. He's fixing it. And
so it's almost like going to grad school for you.
Yeah.
At that age, right?
Yeah. It's just like watching.
Genius grad school.
And him talking about these characters and, people like Gary and James Brooks, to them, these characters are real and you have to honor them and you have to do right by them. And they wanted them to be, honest and, dimensional and flawed. And they just care so much. And those are the people that I always wanted to be around. And, Gary's the funniest. I mean, how funny he is crazy. And there's been very few people who've been insanely funny and really human who can talk about what it's like to be a person on Earth in a very deep way.
How close was Sanders from Gary not acting anymore and Jon Stewart just being the star of the show, and then the show continuing for 2, 3, 4 more years?
How close did we get to doing that?
Yeah.
I wasn't really in those discussions about it, so I'm not sure exactly why it didn't happen.
It would have been an interesting it's an interesting what if, in pop culture history.
Yeah.
Imagine if that happens. Now maybe Stewart doesn't do the Daily Show, and
a
whole bunch of dominoes happen.
It was such a brilliant stroke of Gary's, to end the show by getting pushed out by Jon Stewart, because that's what happens to everyone.
Symbolically,
out of the blue,
new guy.
There's Conan, and there's Leno, and then Leno's out because of Fallon, and that pressure of what is the moment when, if we don't replace the guy, we're going to be behind in 5 years.
Yeah.
So even though Leno's number one forever, with no signs of slowing down, they have to think but if we don't make this change, we're not going to be set for the next era.
That was actually one of the most brilliant moves any networks made in the last 25 years, was the timing of when they did with the Fallon move and tried to use the Olympics. And they felt like Kimmel was gaining momentum with younger viewers. And they were like, we got to do this now. Most times networks are 2 years too late. They were actually the right timing for once.
And you never know who the network executive that's making that decision. You can have an idiot running the network and he mistimes all that, picks the wrong guy, makes it unpleasant, hurts everyone's feelings. And another executive might find a way to thread that needle to make everyone okay and transition well. And that was the politics that Gary was fascinated with. This relationship between incredibly insecure artists, and a network and ratings, so they're trying to be happy in life and pull off the show. And I've said this before, but Gary said, the Larry Sanders Show is about people who love each other, but show business gets in the way.
Yeah.
And I always thought, oh wow, that's an amazing way to think of it. I never in a million years would have known that, but as soon as he said it, I really understood what he was going for.
So you worked with Sandler right as he's at the tail end of one of the best comedy runs anyone's had. and was probably at a point where he's like, all right, now what do I do? And I think comedians, especially the A-list comedians, seems like about 7, 8, 9 years of movies. And then the audiences, you can kind of go, one of two ways. Either you're making the same movie you already made. Some of them, they delve into drama a little bit. They start taking more chances because it's almost like they're not sure what to do.
Well,
Have
I
you
think
been
for
fascinated
all of
by
us
that?
I'm always fascinated by that. For myself too. I mean, I'm doing a romantic comedy now. I'm very aware it's somewhat in the spirit of Knocked Up and Trainwreck, and sometimes you think, oh, this is what I do. I like showing relationships and people acting real and human, and maybe going a little edgier than some people would go. Or am I out of gas?
Right.
And I got no other move.
You're doing a horror movie all of a sudden. Wait, what's happening?
I mean, I'm not like Ron Howard. I'm not going to like pull A Beautiful Mind and an insanely brilliant like race car movie out of my ass. That's not what I can do.
I love that movie.
Oh, it's amazing.
I thought that was maybe his best movie.
Yeah, and hilarious and exciting. But I'm just not that. I'm not going to you're not going to hear like Judd's doing the next, Iron Man.
Right. You know who you are.
So we all are trying to figure out like, okay, where do we stretch? And when you stretch, there's always some people, they're so thrilled that you're pushing yourself. And then there's always the people who are like, why aren't you doing the thing that you always do? And I love any artist. I love that Neil Young's like, fuck you, I'm going to sound like a robot on the new record. I want to try that. I don't care what you think. I heard him on American Masters, and they said, how does that feel to you? Like, if it goes badly. And he's like, I'm always excited that I just got away with taking another risk. I'm just so excited that I slipped another one by.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing. He said none of those words. So we're all trying to do that. And I think, comedians are great actors. So Sandler was so good as an actor in Funny People, and it was very collaborative.
I actually think that was his best performance. And, in the first 20 minutes of movies, one of the recurring gags is that, what was the movie that he was in? It was like some...
Do-Over?
Some giant movie. And he was like the posters are all around the house.
He's a baby with a it's a baby with an adult brain.
But it seemed like that was a proxy for kind of like the worst way his career could have gone had he just started making those kind of movies, right?
Well, it was funny because we talked about it at the time.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't want the guy to be Richard Pryor. I would like the guy to be Dangerfield.
Yeah.
That, Dangerfield was the guy who made, movies. He wasn't trying to do The Apartment. So it was, a mainstream comedy guy who also in his act did not want, like Dangerfield didn't tell you about his personal life.
Yeah.
He just wanted to make you laugh till you shit yourself. But yet there always felt like there was an emptiness to it also because he was somewhat of a tortured guy, and I didn't really know him, but he would go on stage at the Improv and some nights just show up and just not do the jokes and just talk about how he was feeling.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even comedy. It was revealing and sad and amazing. Like he would go on stage and go, sometimes life makes perfect sense. And then you come. And it was dark. It was dark. And that's what we were thinking about is a guy who he wants to make people laugh, but he's left empty and he's given up so much to be that guy that he hasn't really figured out how to have friends and relationships.
Yeah.
So when he gets sick, he literally has nobody to turn to except an ex-girlfriend he can try to win back and some young comic who'll kiss his ass. And so in picking the movies for his career, we said, oh no, he should be the guy that's just going, what will make people laugh, like me talking like a baby, me in a baby body or whatever. And at the time we were like, oh, people will always debate, like, are we making fun of our own movies? But it really was more like the comedian's career. We've all made all of those.
You're not betting 1,000.
Well, I was saying this to my wife the other day. Movies are like being a baseball player. You're doing great if you're 1 for 3.
Yeah.
And so when you look at the streak that some of these guys have been on, how many great, hilarious movies guys like Sandler and Jim Carrey have. It's stunning when you go to the IMDb page. And
yeah, Jim Carrey's kind of, if he was a baseball player, he'd almost be like you thought PEDs were involved or something. Because it's been like a 20-year run.
No, and I mean the amount of like mega hits and hilarious movies Sandler made is crazy. But I think we're all trying to figure out, what do we want to talk about? Because I've done stuff about every era of life already. So I'm almost like waiting for something to happen to me to write about. And I feel like a lot of these modern comedy stars, if you go back and look at some of the older comedy stars from the 70s, if you really look at their careers, they have 3 movies you like. Yeah. And a lot of these guys...
That's what I was saying. It's like a 7-year run. And then then you never know after that.
I mean, you'll look at Sandler's thing and you go like, oh my God, there's 14 of these that are like my favorites.
See, I've turned... Like Sandler, he had a lot of movies I liked, and then there were the movies that everybody was like, "Oh my God, this is Adam Sandler." But then if you have kids, that are in the age range that those movies are targeted for, it all makes sense. My kids love Adam Sandler. Every single movie that he makes, they love, and they've watched like the Grown Ups ones. Like I watched Grown Ups on an airplane. I was like, I don't get it. And then my kids have watched it 15 times. I think they've actually seen Grown Ups 2 more than Grown Ups 1, but. Now I get it. Sandler's making movies for his kids, right? Yeah, and for that whole generation. Well, then he'll make the ones for himself too.
Well, I think his intention is to try to make people laugh really hard. I mean, we don't really put it in these terms, but it is like a real noble life to go, I am just here to put a damn smile on as many faces as I can and make you laugh as hard as I can. But yet we're all like, in a way, like rock bands, like look at U2, they put out all these records, but in a way everyone's in waiting for them to slip. Yeah. And like, if you look at the last record, they put it on everybody's, on the Apple, God forbid you get a free record.
People are furious.
Yeah, people are furious. It doesn't really make any sense. It's not like something you would anticipate. Yeah. But if you wait 6 more months and listen to the record is phenomenal. I saw it in concert. It holds up with everything.
And they still throw great concerts.
Yeah, and they're amazing.
Awesome tour, whole thing.
So for anybody who's been in the business for 20, 30 years, you're just looking for new ways to be inspired and ways to connect with people. So whether it's like a great song, or a funny movie, we're all just digging and going, what else is there?
You figured out one of the secrets, though. I know what one of your secrets
What's
is.
That?
You know how to find talent. Yeah. You find younger people that are on their way up, and you kind of help them go from point A to point B. And you've done it again and again. But so with Amy Schumer, this is the complete opposite of what the Shandling thing was, and even a little bit what Sandler was, because you don't know if she's a movie star. You think she is, but she doesn't totally know, and the studio doesn't totally know. Like, were there like insecurities as she's making that movie, or did you know the whole time she's a star? This is going to be big.
Well, in a way, you put yourself in a trance. You just think,
you just talk yourself into it.
Well, comedy's an experiment. Every joke is an experiment. That's the thing that's, I think, that most people don't understand. That when it's done well, it feels very effortless. That's why comedies don't get awards, like,
which is outrageous.
I mean, I was watching the Steve Jobs movie. So Michael Fassbender, I said that correctly, right?
Yes.
He's an amazing actor, but I don't watch it and think it's more difficult to accomplish than what Amy Schumer does in Trainwreck. And yet, because it makes people happy, I think people take it less seriously.
And meanwhile, the degree of difficulty is probably a notch higher. William Goldman had a great thing. He wrote one of his books. He wrote about how he thought There's Something About Mary should have won the Oscar in like 98. Yeah. And he was like, what's harder to do than to make an entire movie theater like just be doubled over in laughter multiple times in the same movie? And it was like, and what was a more iconic scene than the zipper scene and the cum in the hair? Yeah. He's like, those scenes won the year, and we're not recognizing this. That's a mistake.
Yeah, and so, as much as I really loved the Steve Jobs movie, and I thought Seth was amazing in it, I was just so excited for him because he was so good. It is that funny thing where people don't understand what is so difficult about that. And we always laugh and say, if I didn't have to put the jokes in the movies, these would be much easier to make.
Yeah.
Oh, you just want the story without the joke part? Because figuring out where the humor is and how to keep it real and organic and grounded, but still to elicit laughs and, other emotions, it is very complicated. I think what Amy did was brilliant and revealing, and she's so funny, but she'll tell you the truth. She'll take emotional risks. Anytime I said to her, do you really want to reveal that in the movie or say that? There was never a moment where she hesitated for a millionth of a second.
There's a shamelessness, which I liked. And I think that's really hard for an actor to do, where they're just like, I don't care what I look like in this scene. I don't care what you think of me.
It's
going
it's
for
amazing.
the laugh.
And she also is comfortable that I like myself. And I think if you really get to know me 100%, at the end of it, you'll get me. You'll see some of yourself in me, and that experience will be worthwhile. And there aren't that many people who do it. I've worked with people on scripts, and they'll say, "Oh, I can't talk about that person in my family like that, or I can't say that about myself." But the people who do it,
I'm jealous of those people.
Yeah, it's remarkable when people are brave like that. Seth is like that in the sense that Seth never has to think about whether or not he's going to say something. He's very comfortable just coming from the place of, I'm going to be living complete truth. Whatever I'm feeling, I will tell you it. I'm not going to like play some game of filtering all this and trying to look good. I like who I am. I like my opinions. I'll just tell you what they are. And that's why he's so funny. And that's why people like him. They know he's not full of shit.
And is it fair to say you probably have the biggest attachment to him since you've known him since he was like 5 years old, basically?
Yeah,
I mean, it was like when he was a teenager, but he's been in almost everything you've been in or crossed paths with it or whatever.
Yeah, it's a very unique relationship because I met him when he was 16 years old. And it's interesting to me.
Did you know right away? You knew there was something about him?
I knew right away that he would be great as, a snarky part of this group on Freaks and Geeks, and Jake Kazan and Paul Feig and I, we all instantly, said to each other, what's going on with this guy? This guy's hysterical. Yeah. And you also didn't get a sense that he knew how hysterical he was. I think he probably did, but you didn't feel that. You felt like
he always had the great voice too. It was he just felt different all the time.
It just was a unique person.
Yeah.
And then as we worked with him, we realized, he's actually not kind of this tough, hard guy. He's a complete softy, and he's brilliant and emotional, and he isn't at all what we were, we were looking for a guy to be kind of the funny but mean freak.
Yeah.
And then, we learned more about him, and then we started softening that character to the point of where we did an episode where he finds out that his girlfriend was born with ambiguous genitalia, and the doctor had to decide whether or not to make her a man or a woman when she was born.
Yeah.
And we wrote this really funny but really sensitive to the issue episode because we knew Seth could handle it and that he was such a good guy.
Yeah.
That watching him come to the realization that he loves her and that it doesn't bother him, we thought was a great story and a great showcase for Seth. And in our heads, we're like, oh my God, this is like showing Seth as a movie star. Yeah. And while we were making it, I remember Jake Kazan saying that. He's like, oh my God, Seth's a movie star. And we were so excited. And then to see what he's done as a director and writer with Evan Goldberg, who we've had the same experience with, it's remarkable. It really is. And I'm just a fan. Just as I feel like a fan of Seth, like I was a fan of Steve Martin when I was a kid. I just want to see what he's going to do.
Were you scared for his life last year?
I didn't really think of it in those terms. I felt bad that with the interview that they had made a movie that I thought was really funny and did do something that's important. We should remind the world that those people are suffering and starving and being murdered. That's the point of comedy and satire. Yeah. I mean, they did it in a big, silly movie, but they made a lot of points in it. And it was ultimately a good thing for the world to, have to think about some of it.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone thought that they would pay attention. I think everyone thought, well, they may like put out a "We Hate America," piece of publicity at some point, but no one's going to do anything. Yeah. The weird part is we still don't actually know if they did anything. I don't think they know 100% about what that was.
I don't know what to think until Vanity Fair does the 27,000 word feature about what actually happened. So I'm
but they did it already.
They need another one.
It was in Fortune magazine did it.
I need another one.
So I felt for them comedically and as artists, but they handled themselves really well through all of it. And again, it just goes back to this weird world we live in now with shared information and everyone is connected. And even the head of North Korea, if they were responsible, is paying attention, and everyone is both paying attention and forgetting instantly, because even that gets forgotten that happens.
But wait, before we do that, if you love football, check out Topps NFL Huddle. That's the NFL's officially licensed digital trading card app. With new cards released daily, you can trade with other users, collect your favorite players, and make trades with other users. Even better, play your cards and earn points in real-time daily games based on how players perform on game day. So there's a little fantasy football element to this too. Over 300 million Topps digital packs have been opened since 2012. Let's keep that number going. Download the NFL Huddle app for free on iTunes or Google Play, and you get 10 free packs today. Just do it. Have you noticed the difference between your two daughters with this whole world? Because I always feel like this stuff is generational, but it's also like mini generational. Because I even noticed it at Grantland, the guys and girls that were there from like age 30 to 35 were multitaskers, which I'm not. I'm one of those, our generation is you do kind of one thing and you might be able to do two, but you can't do five.
Yeah.
But then the people that were like 25 to 30 were the ones that actually grew up with the internet. They could listen to a podcast, they could G-chat, they could write emails and read the internet at the same time. And I was like, what is happening? So is there a difference between 13 and 17?
Yeah, because I think that the Instagram phenomena is more about my 13-year-old's world.
And Snapchat or no?
Just the selfie culture.
Yeah.
The complete...
I don't like the selfie culture. Nobody with a daughter likes it. Yeah.
I was doing this joke on stage where I said, the funny thing about all of that is it's like we've all decided that we used to take pictures of other people, but secretly we all wished we could only take them of ourselves. Like we really didn't want to. We were just waiting for the technology to only photograph ourselves. So, this Snapchat... a lot of that is a new generation's thing.
Apparently, that's how they're communicating to the 13 range.
Well,
to avoid the parents, where they just send little quick Snapchats like, "Hey, we're meeting at Bobby's house at 8:30," and then it just disappears. There's no trace.
Well, there's so many like deep levels to it. Like,
it's like espionage.
Like if they take pictures of their friends, like say they're all at a party.
Yeah.
If they post it, they know on some level they're sending a signal to all the kids who weren't invited to the party.
Yeah, it's insulting.
Or if they don't say who's in the photo. Like if say they don't mention that you're in the photo. There's a great documentary about it on CNN last week about what it's like to be a 13-year-old in this culture.
Oh,
but the flip side to it is they're so used to criticism that they're hardened in a way that we weren't. But what I don't like about it is, when I was a kid, I could just hide for 4 years.
Yeah.
Because they're sharing where they are every second of the day by taking photographs of themselves and looking where everyone else is. You always know if you looked good or what people think of you. I didn't really think about that. I was very simple. I had two friends, and there was usually a girl I was stalking.
Right.
And I only was trying to get
crush on.
Yeah, I only wanted to get that one girl to like me, and I had two friends that we would have fun. The idea that all day long you're trying to get 40 different people to comment about how you look and what your plans were, and you're all aware of where you are in the popularity structure, to me would be unbearably stressful. And it also makes me think, is no one ever going to write a short story again? Like, does anybody have the attention span to do the type of creativity that takes a lot of time and thought, because everything is built for consumption in 1 second and then instantly forgotten.
That's
forever.
what worries me about Twitter, because, you know, when we were growing up, if you wanted to express yourself, you wrote a short story, you wrote a column or newspaper, you made a song, you wrote a song, you wrote poetry, you did all these things as your outlet.
Yeah.
Now that outlet is a lot easier. Now it could be like, hey, here's my 140 character tweet. Here's my Instagram photo with a sarcastic caption. And now I don't have the need to write that short story.
Yeah.
And I think that's not a good thing.
Albert Brooks was talking about this, and I don't want to quote him incorrectly, but I think what he was talking about was it satiates your need to be creative.
Yeah.
And then you are less likely to get your actual
to be holed
work
up
done.
in a coffee shop for 4 hours writing something or whatever, however you do it.
But that being said, we are probably completely wrong, and there'll be just as much stuff, and they'll find their own way to do it. And we are the people that are at the beginning of not getting it.
No, but here's the flip side. So when we were kids, it was really hard to see great stuff. How would you see it? We didn't have a ton of channels. I remember I went to a birthday party once in Massachusetts, like a couple months after. Remember the movie Victory with Sly Stallone?
Of course.
Somebody had a birthday party. Yeah. And they had the video of Victory and they showed it for all of us. And we were like, this is amazing. This was just in the theater. And now we're watching it at Danny's house or whatever kid. Yeah. And now if you're a kid, you can watch any movie you want. Like your daughters can catch up on 98 of the 100 best comedies that ever were made. So maybe that offsets the other stuff.
I would hope so. My daughter Maud is very educated about television and movies and is sophisticated and hilarious. And that is it's my hope. But I guess as a parent, we're just all terrified. But I would assume my parents were terrified because all I did was watch Love Connection and Merv Griffin. I mean, when I was in 7th or 8th grade, they literally bought me a motorcycle so I would leave the house. They bought me a dirt bike because they were so afraid for me because I watched 10 hours of TV a day. And is that any different than what they're doing?
See, I'm
Probably
with you
not.
on that. I was the same way. I watched every TV show and I watched all the sports games.
And look,
now,
you're fully employed. It all paid off.
I have a job,
I'm using the fact that I watched MASH and All in the Family and The Odd Couple every day for 10 years in my work. It's you know what it is? It's my Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours.
You put in 10,000 hours of TV.
But their 10,000 hours is just 10,000 hours of taking pictures of themselves.
So after Trainwreck comes out, then it's out, you promote it, it does well. Amy Schumer becomes a big star. Now it's in like the hotel pay-per-view circuit.
Exactly. I know. I've
pretty
been hearing
soon it
from
ends
people.
up on cable. You're at airplanes, edited airplanes, eventually cable. But it's pretty much the run. You know, you're now. Is there a letdown factor after that? Is it almost like winning a title or making the finals or something, where afterwards you're like, now it's the off season?
I mean, it's all strange because as a child of divorce, I hate when these things end. Yeah. And it's a weird business to be in when a lot of the times you have a very intimate experience with people for a few years and then it's just over. Yeah. And then you try to get other things going and you hope that you can. And sometimes, you do and sometimes you don't. I mean, I miss Eric Bana. We hung out with Eric Bana for 3 months and we had the best time ever. And I don't like that aspect of
it's so funny.
my business.
All summer, like Grantland, obviously I was there 4 years, hired everybody who was there, and we were pretty tight and spent a lot of time with them. We had Grantland holiday parties, and then all of a sudden one day I'm not going in there anymore. Yeah. And it really affected me. Like I really felt like all these people were part of my family, and now it's like, all right, well, I guess I'll see them occasionally. Yeah. At like drinks, maybe it's
maybe I'll have an opportunity to steal them back at some point.
Maybe I'll rehire a couple of them.
No, it is. It's very sad.
Yeah, it's like it feels like almost like graduating high school or something.
That's why I couldn't even recover when Freaks and Geeks was canceled.
Oh my god!
I just thought, I want to hang out with these people, and everyone's so creative, and we're in a groove, and I probably had a nervous breakdown from it that took about 12 to 15 years to work through,
because that was like your baby. That was did you put all your eggs in that basket mentally?
I didn't look at it that way. It was funny because I was doing another pilot at the same time with Amy Poehler, David Krumholtz, and Kevin Corrigan and Andrea Martin.
Wow.
And it was about a young therapist. And I loved it. And that's what I wanted to do that year. And then I was helping Paul Feig with Freaks and Geeks, which he created. And I was excited about it. But then my pilot didn't get picked up. And so I worked full time with Paul and Jake Kasdan. And then you just fall in love with everybody and the work, and you just know something magical is happening. So when it ends, you just, it rocks your world in ways that you don't anticipate. And
did you feel like you failed when it got canceled?
I didn't think I failed. I thought that they were,
because you knew people loved the show.
Yeah,
but it's more like, they blew this for me.
It's kind of funny. I think that we felt a responsibility to have the show feel like it was finished. So we shot the last episode 2 or 3 before we got canceled.
Oh,
because we were so.
So you were that worried at that point?
Yeah, we were like, let's shoot the finale. We didn't even tell them it was the finale, but we just reordered it. Yeah. So that even if they said you have to stop shooting now, there would be an end to the series, or at least an episode that could be the end. And yeah, it is like a responsibility to the characters and the world, to
the fans.
Yeah, I remember saying to Paul Feig, Paul, write the finale. Let's get it going. And Paul directed the finale beautifully, and then it became a little bit of almost like a mini series. So you could watch it, and it, although you want to know what happens to them, it has a great conclusion. And
so would you say is the right age for kids to watch Freaks and Geeks? Like 12?
I think you could watch it at 12 or 13. I mean, the only thing that's actually bad in it is that you'd have to discuss marijuana.
I was going to say there's some pot usage.
There's not much sex in it. I mean, no. It's and I always think that whatever age you think is the right age for your kids to watch anything, they've been watching things that are way worse 2 years before that.
Oh yeah.
Like you'll go, I don't know if my kid's ready for Freaks and Geeks, but if you go in your kid's room at midnight, they're probably watching Scream or Rent or just something challenging.
YouTube, which we didn't realize with my son, who's turns 8 next month, but didn't realize that he was like on YouTube watching the 100 greatest horror movie deaths and stuff like that. And all of a sudden he broke out a Jack Nicholson Shining impersonation. I'm like, wait a second, what?
No,
how do you know about The Shining?
You have to give up because there's no way to stop it. You have to just get them to talk to you about it. Right. That's what it is. You can't restrict it because they will see it anyway. They'll watch it on their watch.
Sneak around.
They'll watch it on a toothbrush. The screen is everywhere. Their friends have it. The friends' parents don't pay attention. So they're going to watch anything. They're going to come home and just, ask you about, Human Centipede when you least expect it, or out of the blue, they'll be like, why do they have dolls with replaceable vaginas? and so you just have to be ready to share and answer things. Like my kids told me about a video. Okay, here's the video. A man and a woman kill a bear in a tree. The bear falls out of the tree, dead, and they instantly go fuck on it. I swear to God, it was a real video that went around the internet. So we all can agree that's the worst thing you've ever heard in your whole life. So imagine having to explain it to your children. Like, well, just you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Most people don't do that. I mean, all day long you're faced with them, seeing the worst behavior of human beings, and you have to try to explain why people do it and why you shouldn't watch more of it. Because I would be afraid to have a boy who wants to seek that stuff out, because I think if I was young, I would be obsessed with just finding weird stuff.
You'd watch the worst stuff. Yeah, I agree.
My daughters are like, that's gross. And then they see it occasionally, but for the most part, they're more interested in, a new, Drake video or something. They'll still enjoy an anchorman farting or, montages of models falling on the catwalk, but for the most part, they're not deviant. But boys are deviant. It's probably scarier with boys.
Yeah, our son found on Hulu they had all the South Parks.
Yeah.
And he was watching them, and I was like, well, he's way too young for that, but at the same time, that's a great show. I want him to have a sense of humor.
Exactly.
Maybe he can handle it. And then, like, one day later, he's in the kitchen, and my wife said something to him, and he goes, "Suck my balls!" And we're like, all right, this is over. No more South Park.
But then you have to decide, do you care if your kid says, "Suck my balls"?
And I think we do it. At this point, yes. The answer is yes.
Because that is it. Like, I showed South Park to my kids probably too early. Yeah. But I just wanted a South Park buddy. I wanted to be able to watch it with someone. I watched a Louis episode with my daughter, and then suddenly
that's interesting.
Chloe Sevigny is like masturbating underneath a table, and you have to decide, how many seconds will I watch this with her before I have to shut it off? And it lasted way longer than I expected. But that is the debate at our house all the time, which is it bad to say "suck my balls," or is it really fun? And is it maybe one of the good things in life?
Well, your wife is a longtime actress, so I'm sure she's more of a push the envelope type, right?
I think as a family, we've given up on, now that at this age, on, restricting language and all of that. We get a kick out of it. And as long as people are kind and your kids are kind, they could scream about their balls all day long.
All right. So when's the Carnegie Hall thing?
Carnegie Hall is November 14th. It's part of the New York Comedy Festival.
Yeah.
When's this run? Who knows?
Tuesday or Wednesday next week?
Tuesday or Wednesday next week. Wednesday next week, I'm at the Gotham Comedy Club with Pete Holmes.
Oh, it'll run by then. And then Trainwreck is available in every hotel room in America for $19.99.
I think Trainwreck comes out in about 2 weeks. On Blu-ray, there's a lot of extras that are actually pretty cool. If you want to see me talking to LeBron James a lot, if you like to see the intimacy.
I never asked you. I had two small things to ask you.
Okay.
All right, we'll do these and then we'll go. One, does it bother you when you're flicking channels on cable and one of your movies is on like TBS or Comedy Central and it's just been, the scenes have been mutilated because they have to do stuff for...
Well,
do you ever get used to that?
I've recently, not that recently, for the last 4 or 5 years, I do the edits myself.
You do it for
network TV?
Oh, that's great.
So some of my early films are still kind of butchered, but the last bunch, when I record the ADR sessions, like their voices, I'll try to get some decent curse replacements. Right. I remember I saw Glenn Ross and. Al Pacino's like, you stupid bunt cake, you bunt. So I try to
Scarface was the worst one.
Sometimes I'll recut the movie because I'll go, this scene does not work without the curses or whatever the dirty part is, and I'll say, give me the footage, and I'll cut a completely different version of the scene, or find a scene
for the TV version.
Yeah, find a scene that wasn't in the movie ever, and re-edit the scene. Sometimes they say,
I wish people did that more though.
Oh no, I quietly do it. Like they've said to me, like, can you cut 12 minutes out of Funny People so it fits the amount of time?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, it's gonna ruin the movie. And then I go off and I cut 12 minutes, and I'm like, that was a pretty good cut. But I always get mad because I feel like people are like, your movies are long. I'm like, well, then why do you go home and watch 7 episodes of Breaking Bad in a row? Like, you'll watch 7 hours of Narcos. Give me 8 minutes.
Yeah, you and I are kindred spirits because my columns are always too long.
Yeah.
Everybody says your movies are 15 minutes too long. It's like, hey,
what is 15 minutes between friends?
So, LeBron James.
Yes.
Your best LeBron James story.
My best LeBron James story.
You haven't said an interview yet.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. What is the best LeBron James
I mean, he's about as famous as anyone you've been around.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun when LeBron James is around us because although we're like sports fans, we're not like insane sports fans. Like, we would be much more excited, if Lily Tomlin dropped by the set.
Yeah.
That's just because we're comedy nerds. So as a result, we are very respectful and we love him, but we're not like shaking in our boots the way the super hardcore fans would. And as a result, I think he really likes hanging out with us because we're not weirdos that way.
Oh, that's interesting. So he probably felt you're not gawking at him. And
no.
Although he is 6'9", 270, that takes a little while to get used to.
He's bigger in the chair. And so I think that he enjoyed being with us because, we really like him as a person. Like we fell in love with him as just a guy who was really funny and fun to work with and who would just shoot the shit with us. He was very casual. And now you're going to direct Space Jam 2.
I'm all for it. You're ready. Throw your hat in the ring. I was going to make some money, get some points.
Me and LeBron have some chemistry. We've got some comedy chemistry because I'm very uncomfortable around athletes most of the time. Like when we did Kicking and Screaming, Mike Ditka was in it. And I don't think I said 3 words to him because I don't know all the old football stories or even current football enough to shoot the shit with him. Yeah. So then I'm just left with like, so Mike, are you going to get the steak or the chicken today? I'm left with like nothing but, hey, how's that knee brace? Does that work for you?
Right. Well, LeBron is like a legendarily funny guy behind the scenes, like with teammates and stuff. So I'm not surprised that he probably loved being around all the comedy nerds.
Well, I think all those guys are used to busting each other's balls.
Yeah, totally.
They've built up really strong comedy instincts. But, the funny thing about LeBron is we were talking about comedy movies. And he was really sophisticated about it. He knows his movies really well. And he was talking about different actors and actresses and who he liked and who he didn't and who he thought, was doing strong work now versus other work. And I thought, oh, he's on top of this.
So he could do Boomerang too, maybe write and direct it.
Well, I was thinking more of... shit, I couldn't pull the reference fast enough.
It was right
Bowfinger.
Bowfinger. Oh, interesting.
LeBron James in Bowfinger.
You know the secret with professional athletes that become that famous? They watch a ton of TV and they check their Twitter replies all the time.
That's why we like them.
They don't have a lot of time. I mean, they don't have a lot of... They're not hanging out with people. They're kind of trapped all the time on a plane, on a hotel suite, in a car.
That's why that's what they do. That's what we love is that athletes and sometimes like musicians... They know their comedy really well because they're stuck on the bus and the plane all day long.
Yes.
So you'll bump into any of those people.
And they're in charters.
You'll bump into like Neil Young and he's seen like every goofy movie ever made. That's the funniest part. They all know Walk Hard, Inside and Out, and that's the best.
Judd Apatow, I'm glad we finally did this.
We got it done.
It's done, man. All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming here.
Sure.
Don't forget, my podcast listeners can use promo code BS for the SeatGeek app and get a $20 rebate off your first SeatGeek purchase. You count as a podcast listener. I am positive, so you should do this. Every ticket purchased on SeatGeek is backed by a 100% guarantee. It's the best way to buy tickets. To redeem your promo code, download the free SeatGeek app and enter promo code BS. Thanks again to Topps NFL Huddle for sponsoring today's episode. Collect and trade officially licensed NFL cards with football fans around the globe. Use your collection to compete in daily fantasy-style games and keep coming back for new cards, free coins, and maybe even rare inserts. Download Topps NFL Huddle free in iTunes or Google Play, and you get 10 free packs if you do it. That's it for the Bill Simmons podcast for this week. You can get all the BS podcasts at BillSimmonsPodcast.com. We have them on SoundCloud. We have them on iTunes. If you subscribe to them on iTunes, you get them right away. And we're going to have Stitcher soon, hopefully. Friday, Joe House. We're going to quickly do NFL picks, and then we're banging out part 1 of the annual NBA Over-Unders podcast. Over-Unders for wins for every team. We love gambling. We love the NBA. I love doing these podcasts. Until then.